to Tech Talk. It's been a few weeks, and Brian and I have just been parading around the country and messing around. But in all seriousness, no, we took a few weeks off, and we are back with some more subjects, some more technology, just some more discussion in general, which is pretty awesome, right? So we're going to get started today with episode 10. Let's talk about pot. I mean, POTS, yes, plain old telephone service.
Can it be both?
System. Yeah, I don't know. I don't even know what the laws are in Pennsylvania, so we'll skip that version of pot.
Yeah.
We'll just talk about POTS as in the plain old telephone. We're going to talk about Scada. Oh, go ahead.
Yeah, I was going to say we should talk about Scada too.
We are, yeah. We're going to talk about
hand in
Scada
hand
today too, which is supervisory control and data acquisition. I'm going to need a teleprompter to get all these terms down here. But anyhow, so let's jump into some of that, and we can kind of discuss I guess the main subject of today, as we talk about these different solutions and what's going on, is we're going to talk about how cellular modems really and the cellular networks and routers play a role in these solutions. So here we go. All right, so Scada and POTS replacement, right? So let's talk a little bit about what those solutions are, right? So up top, that's a huge screen there with the guy at the hard hat. That's a whole lot going on. And today, what we're going to refer to, there's a couple different solutions out there when we talk about Scada systems. They are very complex systems, and they run every day in our world, if you know it or not, right? One of the more common Scada solutions that I'm familiar with just from supporting the government over my years at Verizon was our local government water authorities, right? Probably not the most fantastic conversation we ever want to have as far as water and sewer, but the fact of the matter is there are these complex systems in place that are cleaning, purifying, taking care of wastewater and all of this stuff, and we really wouldn't want them to break down. And so there's a lot of pumps involved, water pumps involved, and a lot of filtration process, and in all of that is a very complex system, a Scada system that's kind of an intelligent system that's being controlled, and that data is getting moved around and everything. So that's one.
Same with electrical substations.
Yeah, they're there.
You don't want the electricity to go out.
No, that would be bad too, right? We like our electricity, so I don't think anyone's like really like, man, I hope I can just go back to candles. That would really solve my problems. So now we use candles to smell stuff instead of actually for light, right? So anyhow, so those are two great examples of Scada networks, and then you can see the other two images there with POTS replacement, right? With plain old telephone replacement. And we're seeing a large move and a large increase in volume of connectivity being replaced. That used to be old copper lines and being replaced over the cellular network. So we're going to talk about the multitude of ways of how that works and the solutions, right? So in the bottom corner there you see, whether it's a fax machine or a call box or an elevator phone, there's a lot of different solutions being replaced there. So
there's a good reason too. I mean, in addition to the better technology that cellular provides than copper, the price of copper is going up, and also some of these aging infrastructures need to be refreshed and replaced. And so we're finding that the cost to the consumer, the cost to the business for implementing these POTS solutions lines and maintaining them is increasing every month, really every year. And so that's another positive reason why these POTS replacement solutions are really taking to the wind.
Yeah, and that makes sense, right? Because I mean, I don't know, I didn't do any history. There's no fact checking me here, but I think the POTS stuff started in like the copper lines infrastructure started in like the 1920s, didn't it? Probably back around that time. Old Bell and whatever it looks like from that perspective. I mean, again, you can Wikipedia it and learn the exact times, but you're talking a copper line, copper wire that's been out there on a pole for 100 years, 100 plus years. It is aging, and Brian, as you said, yeah, I mean, the price, any of the precious metals, they're all going up, and there's not a lot of reward, right? You can't run high-speed internet over a copper line, not well, right? Not compared to fiber optic and some of the other technologies that are out there, right? So there's no real good reason to reinvest in copper line infrastructure. So yeah, that's a great point why we're moving away from a lot of this. So let's talk Scada first. So this is a pretty simplistic actual, architecture of what a Scada workstation with some other items are. You can see some modems in there. And really at the end of the day, if you can start thinking about some type of infrastructure and where cellular comes in place is, everyone lives probably in a home, an apartment somewhere, right? And going back to the water authority, your water is moving from every house in a town.
1876.
1876?
1876. Just Googled it.
Man, they were using candles back then, I bet, too. That's crazy. All right, so we'll come back to that when we get to the pot stuff, but that's interesting. So think about all the water that's moving under the ground through, water pipes and sewer pipes from every home in your town, in the country, right? Back to these water authorities. So there are definite things that can happen. Clogs can happen, right? Obstructions. Somebody throws some silly toy down the sewer grate, whatever it happens to be, right? I mean, crazy stuff happens. And so what you'll see is there's sensors throughout the entire system, all across your town, all across the cities. And again, when you look at that, how does that data get back, right? If I put a sensor on Main Street or 13 Main Street, under the ground, how am I getting that data back there? And so, and better yet, if I'm putting something to control, like a valve or something that I want to be able to control the flow of water, how do I control that, right? So the progression always in society or in how we think about problems, our progression when we look at our minds are, the first thing is we put something out there. Then we say, oh, it'd be really nice if I could see that thing out there. And so then we get a camera, we get visibility on a screen, whatever. And then we always say, oh, it'd be better than just seeing it if we could control that thing we put out there, right? So, if you think of it in like security cameras, it was like, man, I wish I could see that area that's getting, robbed or there's crime happens. So put a camera. And they're like, oh, you know what? It'd be really cool if I could move the camera around, because sometimes the people just run underneath the camera or something, right? So same concept. So anyhow, when you look at SCADA systems, that's what we have. They use a lot of what's called PLCs, programmable logic controllers. Those are typically in a more non-rugged environment, and they have different rules in place to control. So again, some of this is automated, right? And then there's RTUs, which is remote terminal units. They're more rugged, they collect a lot more data, and they're out in the field. You would have like an RTU connected to some of these sensors out in the city, and that would allow them to control valves and all that good stuff. Again, at the end of the day, all of these devices, all of these things talking to the network, guess what they need? Connectivity. And that's where we come in. So whether it's a router, a modem, a gateway, rugged for that, built-in devices, that's where we see a ton of opportunity and a ton of the cellular solutions coming into play there. So as you can see, here's a couple different options as well. When we look at the solutions here, we have, there is some water pump there, there's a farm there with some silos, and then a manufacturing plant as well, right? So you can kind of take a look at, that's the different places that the SCADA network solutions are falling into place with. And the solution's a fantastic solution. So Brian, anything to add there before I move over to talking about pots?
No, man, you covered it pretty well.
Man, you're cool, man. I don't know. Every time I hear the word pot, I just think of like Dazed and Confused and
Matthew McConaughey.
Yeah,
be like cooler if you did.
And Slater, the dude with the beanie. You're cool, man. You're cool.
George Washington.
So let's talk pots replacement. All right. So again, we talked about what was the year? 1872, did you say?
Let's go look that back up here. 1876.
1876. That's a long freaking time
Yep.
for a wire to be out there.
Almost 150 years.
Yeah. So what's happening here, though, is, again, as we talk about society and how we built upon infrastructure, right? These lines have been out there. People have used them. People found the really cool thing about ingenuity and just technology and innovation is when things get put out in there, right, in the world, in this case, copper lines, they probably were traditional for some type of communication, but then people realized I can use it for an elevator phone. I can use it for an alarm panel. I could use it for, X, Y, and Z. I could use it back to Scada. They use that for alarms sometimes. I have a friend who has a chicken farm, and in their chicken houses, it makes a phone call to him or his sons and goes through a dialing tree if for some reason the automation is broke in the chicken house and it's not.
I thought you were going to say if like the AI camera caught a fox.
Yeah, no, that'd be cool too. But yeah, no, like the house itself has like automatic feeders and stuff for the chickens, and so if something breaks or something doesn't happen or it doesn't work properly, they get a phone call, and it just calls like the dad first, and the next son, and the next son, until somebody answers, and that means that okay, somebody got the message, now they need to go fix it. So anyhow, so there's all these solutions out there since 1876 that have been built upon this infrastructure, and now we're at a place where we're saying the infrastructure is not going to stay. So what are we going to do? Well, one of the newer infrastructures that hasn't been around since 1876 is cellular, and it's a fantastic infrastructure. There's a lot of carriers out there that have built some amazing networks, right? And you can use that network and leverage that network to replace that traditional copper solution, and in ways that are more affordable, that in ways that could give you a different functionality, and then in ways that are just simply that traditional replacement. So this is a good diagram of a traditional replacement. ATA stands for analog telephone adapter. So what happens is the cell network gets a router. It uses an analog telephone adapter that takes it from Ethernet and internet and networking, right, and data to voice and phone in that box, and then it transfers it out over a more like a VoIP line in the back end, right? So that's how that works. So it still gets to transfer that phone call and make that happen all from that one box. This commercial product is something we actually offer at Connect Us, and you can actually get up to 16 lines out of one of these boxes. So think of like a telco room in a bank or a enterprise or a corporate building, and maybe they have multiple elevators, maybe they have a couple vaults, maybe they have an alarm panel. That would sit in that telco room, the closet where all the phone lines are in, and be connected and just run all those different lines over that. So that's traditional. What we have that's starting to become really, really exciting as well, in addition to that, is new to market replacements. So there's this thing that was developed during 4G LTE solution called VoLTE. It's voice over LTE. Now I mentioned on the traditional replacement, it still gets hosted kind of over VoIP lines, and those lines are not specific to the carrier. VoLTE is when we run an entire phone call, all secluded inside the cellular network, right? So the entire travel of that signal, of that phone call, gets routed. You've been doing this with your cell phones for probably almost, not quite 10 years, but probably 5 to 7 years now. Most of the phones that you use, your iPhones or anything, they're calling over data. That's voice over LTE, voice over the LTE 4G network. And so what we're starting to see, and there's some caveats to this, but we're starting to see these devices like the Simplify device and this ATEL device that have come to market specifically to be able to help with the POTS replacement. Now, again, they have some caveats. They haven't figured out, I think, the fax thing yet. So it's more like elevators, alarm panels, items like that. There has to be a solution for backup battery because there's regulations around that, but you get the idea. And so what we're seeing from there is the ability to use one box, no hosting of VoIP lines on the back end, and everything's done through the cellular carrier. What that does is that reduces cost of ownership as well. Now we're not having to have that additional hosting cost, but it does come right now, as of today, with the with a caveat that it's not as robust of a solution just yet. It's in its infancy. So these I like for one-time use. So as we're talking about the Scada, or we're talking about my friend with the chicken farm, right? This is a perfect example where they could put one of these boxes and the phone line, the phone jack, the RJ11 jack would plug into one of these boxes, and then they could get rid of the actual traditional phone line coming into their chicken house, right? And that would replace it. They'd have a lower cost, and it's a nice one-to-one solution. You would not use this compared to the traditional replacement if you needed 16 lines inside a telco closet. You'd have 16 of these boxes, and it just wouldn't be a really streamlined solution. So that's what we got today. Brian, thoughts, emotional outbursts, anything awesome, anything crazy? What you got?
I had an awesome Memorial Day.
Me too. Yeah.
It was a good weekend. A lot of
Very
pool time.
Nice.
No, you hit POTS replacement very, very well. These one-to-ones with Simplify ATEL, like you said, they're in infancy, but everything starts in infancy. Yep.
Yeah, they're blazing trails right now, which is pretty awesome. So, well, everyone have an amazing day. We're happy to be back. We're thrilled to be sharing more tech talk with you. We'll have more episodes coming every week again. And
Mesh Network next.
What Mesh Network's next? There you go.
Yep.
Awesome. All right. We will catch up with everyone later.
Have a good one.